The day started like any other. I was making coffee in our modest kitchen when James walked in, dressed in his best suit, a smug smile plastered across his face. Something was different about him. There was an air of arrogance I hadn't seen before. "Sarah, we need to talk," he said, adjusting his expensive new watch, a recent purchase I hadn't questioned. I should have. "What's on your mind?" I asked, already knowing what was coming. The late nights at the office, the secret phone calls, the sudden interest in looking more executive. It all made sense now. "I'm leaving you for Emily," he announced like he was sharing great news. "She's the CEO of Morton Industries. Unlike you, she's actually going somewhere in life. I'm tired of being married to someone who can't match my ambitions." I took a sip of my coffee, hiding my smile behind the mug. James had always been ambitious, but his ambition was matched only by his ignorance. My name is Sarah Chen, and for the past 5 years, I've been married to a man who thought he knew everything about me. The truth? He didn't know the first thing about who I really was. "Emily's different," James continued, pacing the kitchen with animated gestures. "She understands the corporate world. She's not stuck answering phones and filing papers like you. Do you know she made over $8 million last year?" I set my coffee down carefully. "Is that what she told you?" He scoffed. "I've seen the reports, Sarah. I'm not an idiot. She's shown me everything. The company finances, her personal accounts. She's offering me a position as vice president of operations. Can you imagine? Me, a VP. I could imagine it quite well, actually. After all, I had been the one to suggest to Emily that we might have an opening in that department. Of course, James didn't know that. He didn't know that Emily Morgan, the supposed CEO of Morton Industries, was actually just the face of the company. The real owner? That would be me. "What about our life together?" I asked, more curious about his response than actually concerned. "5 years of marriage just gone." "Let's be honest," he said, straightening his tie. "We've been going nowhere. You're content being a secretary, making what? 40,000 a year. Emily makes that in a week. She has vision, connections. She's taking the company global." I bit back a laugh. Morton Industries had gone global 3 years ago, long before Emily was even hired. I had orchestrated that expansion myself, working late nights in my home office while James assumed I was just catching up on filing. The truth was far more complex than James could imagine. 10 years ago, I inherited Morton Industries from my grandfather, who built it from the ground up. But he taught me something valuable before he passed. The best way to understand your company is from the ground up. So I worked my way through every department, learning the ins and outs of the business. When I finally took over as owner, I made a decision. I would remain anonymous, using a public face for the company while I kept working among the employees. Emily was hired specifically for this role, to be the public CEO while I maintained control from behind the scenes. She was good at her job, playing the part of the powerful executive perfectly. What I hadn't expected was for her to fall for my husband's obvious attempts at seduction. "When are you leaving?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "Tonight," he said, pulling out his phone to check the time on his new Rolex. "Another gift from Emily, no doubt. Emily's arranged for movers to come for my things. We're moving into her penthouse in the city. My penthouse, actually. One of several properties I maintained for business purposes." "I suppose congratulations are in order," I said, standing up to rinse my coffee mug. "I hope you find what you're looking for, James." He paused, clearly thrown by my calm reaction. "That's it? No fighting, no begging me to stay." "Would you like me to beg?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "No, I just—" He trailed off, frustrated by my lack of emotion. "I thought you'd care more." "I care," I said softly, "just not in the way you think I should." He shook his head, that familiar look of condescension crossing his face. "This is exactly why I'm leaving. You have no ambition, no fire. You're perfectly content being nothing more than a secretary for the rest of your life." If he only knew, I had spent the last 5 years building Morton Industries into a global powerhouse, doubling our revenue and expanding into new markets, all while he thought I was just pushing papers around a desk. "You know what your problem is, Sarah?" he continued, warming to his theme. "You're afraid to take risks. Emily, she takes what she wants. She's a real businesswoman." I smiled, thinking about the meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning. "You might be surprised about what I'm capable of, James." He laughed, the sound grating on my nerves. Right. Well, I got to go. Emily's expecting me for lunch to discuss my new position. Don't worry about the divorce papers. Our lawyers will handle everything. Our lawyers. He had no idea that the prestigious law firm Emily had recommended was actually on retainer with Morton Industries with me. As he turned to leave, something made him pause. You know, I did love you once, but people grow. They change. I need someone who can keep up with me. I understand completely, I said, walking him to the door. Good luck with everything, James. I mean that. He gave me one last patronizing smile before walking out, probably thinking he was leaving me devastated and alone. Little did he know, he had just walked right into a trap of his own making. I waited until I heard his car pull away before pulling out my phone. Emily? Yes, he just left. Time to set everything in motion. The next morning, I arrived at Morton Industries early, taking my usual spot at the reception desk. I watched as James strutted through the lobby, nodding condescendingly at me as he passed. He was wearing a new suit, probably bought with the company credit card Emily had given him. Right on schedule, my phone buzzed with a message from Emily. Board meeting in 30 minutes. Everything's ready. I smiled, thinking about what was about to unfold. James had no idea that he was about to learn the true meaning of ambition. The boardroom at Morton Industries was impressive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. A massive mahogany table that could seat 30 and state-of-the-art presentation screens on every wall. James sat near the head of the table, next to Emily, practically glowing with self-importance. I slipped in quietly, taking my usual spot in a corner where I would normally take minutes of the meeting. James didn't even glance my way. To him, I was invisible, just another part of the office furniture. Emily stood, commanding the room's attention. Good morning, everyone. Before we begin today's regular agenda, there's an important announcement. James straightened his tie, clearly expecting his promotion to be announced. The smirk on his face made my stomach turn. As you know, Emily continued, Morton Industries has been going through some significant changes. Today, we have a special guest joining us. She paused, looking directly at me. Ms. Chen, would you like to take over? The confusion on James's face was priceless as I stood up and walked to the front of the room. He looked between Emily and me, his brow furrowed, trying to understand what was happening. Thank you, Emily, I said, my voice clear and confident. For those who don't know me, I'm Sarah Chen, the owner of Morton Industries. The color drained from James's face. He gripped the arms of his chair, his knuckles turning white. Some of you may know me as Sarah from reception, or Sarah from HR, or even Sarah the secretary. For the past 5 years, I've worked in various positions throughout this company, learning every aspect of our operations from the ground up. I clicked through to the next slide, showing our latest quarterly results. Under this management structure, we've seen unprecedented growth. Our global expansion has exceeded all projections, and our profit margins have doubled in the past 3 years. James was shaking his head slowly, his mouth slightly open. I could see him putting the pieces together, all those late nights I spent catching up on filing. The mysterious business trips Emily took that always seemed to coincide with major company decisions. The way employees at all levels seemed to respect and defer to me despite my supposedly lowly position. However, I continued, recent events have brought to light some concerning behaviors that need to be addressed. I clicked to the next slide, displaying a series of expense reports. In the past month, we've documented numerous instances of unauthorized use of company resources. James's eyes widened as he recognized the charges. His new suits, the Rolex, the expensive dinners he'd been enjoying with Emily. Emily Morgan has been an excellent face for Morton Industries, I said, nodding to her. She's played her role perfectly, including the recent operation to expose potential corporate espionage and fraud. Emily stood up, moving away from James. Mr. Chen here has been attempting to gain access to confidential company information through, let's say, personal means. She placed a folder on the table. Every conversation, every promise of position and power, every attempt to access restricted data has been documented. James jumped to his feet. This is ridiculous. Emily, what are you doing? We had an agreement. No, James, Emily replied calmly. You had an agreement with the person you thought I was. My real agreement is with Morton Industries and Sarah. I could see him crumbling, his perfectly constructed world falling apart. Sarah, he said, turning to me, his voice taking on a pleading tone. You can't. This isn't. Can't what, James? Run a multi-billion-dollar company, make executive decisions, keep up with your ambitions? I kept my voice level, professional. I've been doing all of that and more while you were busy looking down on me for being just a secretary. The board members watched in silence, many of them hiding smiles. They'd known my true identity all along, had worked with me directly on major company decisions while maintaining the illusion for security purposes. As of this moment, I continued, you are terminated from Morton Industries. Security will escort you from the building. I nodded to the two guards who had entered quietly during my presentation. The police have also been notified about the unauthorized use of company funds. They'll want to speak with you about that. You can't do this, he sputtered, his face red with rage and humiliation. I'm your husband. Actually, I said, sliding another folder across the table. As of this morning, that's no longer true either. These are divorce papers, James. Everything's been arranged. Given the documented evidence of your attempted corporate espionage and fraud, I don't think you'll want to contest anything. He stared at the papers, then at me, then at Emily. The realization of how completely he'd been outplayed finally seemed to hit him. His shoulders slumped in defeat. Mr. Chen, one of the security guards, said firmly, please come with us. As they led him out, I turned back to the board. Now, shall we discuss our actual quarterly projections? The meeting proceeded as normal after that, though I could see the impressed looks on the board members' faces. They'd known I was capable, but watching me handle James had shown them another side of my leadership. Later that evening, I sat in my real office, the CEO's suite on the top floor, looking out over the city. Emily knocked and entered, carrying 2 glasses of champagne. Well, she said, handing me one, that went even better than we expected. I took a sip, savoring the moment. He made it easy, really. His ego was always his weakness. Still, Emily said, sitting down across from me, it couldn't have been easy, watching him dismiss you all those years, knowing what you really were. I thought about it for a moment. You know what the funny thing is? He always talked about ambition, about being something more, but he never once tried to really understand the business from the ground up. He just wanted the title, the corner office, the prestige. And you? Emily asked, though she knew the answer. I wanted to build something real, I said, looking at the city sprawled out below us. My grandfather taught me that to really lead, you have to understand every aspect of what you're leading. That's why I worked my way through every department, why I kept my identity hidden. I wanted to see the company for what it really was, not what people would show a CEO. Emily raised her glass. Well, here's to building something real, and to men who underestimate women in the workplace. I laughed, clinking my glass against hers. I almost feel bad for him, almost. Don't, Emily said firmly. He got exactly what he deserved. Later that night, as I walked through my penthouse, the one James had thought belonged to Emily, I felt a profound sense of satisfaction. Not because I'd gotten revenge, though that was certainly satisfying, but because I'd stayed true to my principles. I'd built something real, something lasting, while James had been chasing shortcuts to success. My phone buzzed with a text from my lawyer, divorce papers filed. Given the evidence, he's not contesting anything. It's over. I walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. Tomorrow the business papers would run the story. Morton Industries owner reveals identity, exposes corporate espionage attempt. My PR team had already prepared the press releases emphasizing the company's commitment to security and ethical business practices. But tonight, I just stood there, enjoying the quiet satisfaction of finally being able to be myself completely. No more hiding, no more pretending to be less than I was. James had wanted someone who could match his ambitions. He just hadn't realized he was married to someone who had already surpassed them. The irony wasn't lost on me. In trying to trade up for someone he thought was more successful, he'd lost everything to the woman he'd looked down on all along. It was a lesson in humility he wouldn't soon forget. As for me, I had a global company to run, this time from the top floor where I belonged.